I'm Devyn, a life coach.
I'm Meg, a death doula, and this podcast is what happens when a life coach and a death doula walk into a bar.
Honest conversations about grief, joy, and who gets your mother's pearl earrings. Nothing is off limits.
And it all goes back to death.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm good. I miss you. It's good to see you.
I know. And you have a birthday coming up. Yay. For all of the astrology people, I am a Scorpio. You are a Leo. I am very drawn to fire signs. They rock my world. And I'm surrounded by Leos, including you.
Yeah. And your mom.
And my mom and my brother.
Oh, yes. Who I share the same birthday with. And your cousin.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty
popular.
It's pretty popular. Yeah. It's a fun week. We have a fun week planned. I know you have a fun week planned. And celebrating life is equally as important as, celebrating people when they pass.
Exactly. All right. So tell me about your week. What went on this week? Anything I need to know?
Okay. I had a crazy week. And it was one of those weeks where every day I woke up and was like, what day could it possibly be?
Yeah.
I had no concept of time. I still really don't have a concept of time. I think because next week's festivities are so abundant that it feels like when I'm, just sitting kind of waiting for that, it's like time goes very slowly. That being said, I had two things to share, funny things. First of all, something that gave me hope for the next generation of people dealing with grief. So obviously, you know what TikTok is. I don't know if you're on there, but there was a group of I want to say they look around my goddaughter's age. So probably 13, 14-year-olds. And they got on, and it's three of them, three cousins. And they did a transition from the wake to the funeral. And their outfits, the caption was, "Miss you, Nana."
No way. I have to see this.
It was so funny. And honestly, so the comments obviously are going off and you guys don't even realize what this is. When you get older, you'll realize how ridiculous this is. And I was laughing so hard because my take was good, we're normalizing this.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't that so funny?
Yes, I definitely want to see that.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
And the second thing that stuck out to me, just because it all goes back to death. So I was talking to someone at a bar the other night, and his opening line was, "What do you think happens to us when we die?"
Not knowing
anything. That was just the cold opener. Which,
I just got goosebumps.
I know. I thought was ballsy, but also really probably tells a lot about a person and just answering that question, right? Philosophically, where do you stand? Religiously, where do you stand? Belief system wise, where do you stand? And then we got into, I was like, it's so funny that you asked, because I talk about death at least once a week, if not several times. And so we got into this very cool conversation, but again, another person in their 30s who is just normalizing the conversation around death. So I felt like my week was positive in the sense that I do think that there are breakthroughs being made of how people speak about grief, how people speak about what happens afterward. And even in casual settings, obviously, I don't know if it's appropriate or not to do a wake to a funeral outfit choice situation on TikTok.
I think it's great.
Yeah, and I don't have kids, so I really don't weigh in on things like that. But I did really think, with the conversations that I had this week, that some of the work that we're doing, obviously not necessarily because of the work that we're doing, but is so necessary because it does help sort of warm up these conversations in a way that doesn't feel so cold or so dreadful. I just think that, being at a bar and having someone ask that question was whoa, if this is the future, I love what I see.
I think that is so affirming, and it's so positive and encouraging and intimate.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's great. That just made my day.
I
It really
know.
did. I'm so happy to hear that.
I know. I thought it was so great. And I was like, I obviously said, I was like, that's a good cold opener. Like, that's, I mean, and I'm sure some people are freaked out by it, but I obviously was like,
We welcome it.
let's dive in.
So do we have a new subscriber? Is he subscribing to the
Yeah.
podcast, I
Yeah.
hope?
I
Okay,
was
good.
like, this is where you can find us. This is what you should be looking for. Yeah. Of
Good.
course.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How was your week?
Well, so it all goes back to death. My story is that I have a friend and she is in her 40s, and she told me that she suddenly and horrifically lost her best friend. Yeah. So I was thinking of you when you talk about your best friend and how you want to die in the same day and all of that. And I mean, it was sudden, it was awful. I'm not going to get into the specifics because it's not my story to tell, but it is pretty unimaginable and sudden and tragic and really knocked the wind out of her. And she's reeling, right? And so she's got two kids that are maybe like 7 and 11 or something like that. And then her friend has kids too. So right now she's doing everything she can to spend time with them, to help them, to be with them, for them and for her. But she's trying to do the business of her own life and driving the kids to camp. She's going off to work. She's, putting off, I guess, her grief so that she can get through her days.
Mhm.
But I brought up the whole healing trip thing to her because I really think that, if she can at some point take the time to step out and step into nature, based on my experience, it can be a game changer. So she asked me to explain what a healing trip is. And, we had very little time. So I was trying to explain it to her. And I thought, what, this is a good thing to talk about. And I have time to go back and look at these books that I read about it. So not only from my own experience, but, many people do healing trips and write about their experiences. So I thought we'd talk about that today. And the first one is a book called That I Adored. It was written in 2003. I read it a long time ago. I had already done a healing trip, so I was on board with it. But when I got this book and I read about this guy's, it clicked like, oh, wow, that's what I did. But I didn't have the words for it.
Yeah.
So it's called Monkey Dancing, and it's written by Daniel Glick. And he had just gotten a divorce and he has two kids. So he was mourning the loss of his marriage, and his brother and his best friend had just died. The brother is his best friend, and he died of breast cancer. So he was really had compound grief. And so he decided to take the two kids on a boat for like 6 months and travel the world and school them on the boat and do all that. I mean, most people can't do this, but it was fascinating.
Mhm.
And I think the reason that it was so fascinating is because, his words are better than mine, so I'm going to read them. Radical presence, immersing themselves in intense, unfamiliar environments like tracking orangutans in Borneo or trekking in Nepal, force them to live completely in the present moment, offering an escape from repetitive sad thoughts.
I
So,
love that.
right?
Yeah.
Also, shared vulnerability. Traveling through remote areas meant they had to rely entirely on each other. This broke down emotional walls between the father and his children. Nature as a mirror. Witnessing endangered ecosystems and the resilience of wildlife helped the family internalize the natural cycles of life, death, and renewal.
I love that so much.
I mean, and based on my experience, I mean, I didn't do chase orangutans, but we had those experiences in nature in our own way. We when my brother died, I then lost a baby. So I had these, compound grief. And I really felt like there was nothing to look forward to.
Mhm.
Nothing. And I was too scared to try to have another baby because I didn't want to have more loss. So one day I was watching Oprah, and she said that Sedona is the metaphysical healing center of the universe. So Kieran walked in the door and I said, we're going to Sedona because it's the metaphysical healing center of the universe. And he was like, okay, whatever you need. So we booked the trip. I then did find out very early on that I was pregnant, but I didn't tell anybody because I was so afraid. And we went to the Grand Canyon and Sedona, and it was healing. And we had dinner in a vortex, and all this wonderful energy. And then we had some extra time, so we rented a car and we drove to Lake Powell, which is just under 3 hours away. And it's this beautiful, it's like the Grand Canyon, but they dam it and it's filled with beautiful water and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And we happened to see Joe Montana, of all people, getting off his houseboat with 4 little kids. And I said to Kieran, wow, this is awesome. If we ever have kids someday, this is like a really cool place to bring them. So I just put that in the back of my head. And then, we did that, came home, great, had a very healthy pregnancy, had a baby, great, proceeded to have 3 more, great. So then fast forward 2012, when my dad died, I said, that's it. We're going on a healing trip because I knew the value of it. I had read about it with Daniel Glick. I had read about it with other people. So I gave the kids like 5 different choices of where to go. I don't even remember all the choices, but it was their choice. And Lake Powell was on it, but unintentionally. I don't know why I put that on there, but I did. And they picked it. So I thought, okay, that's good. So we get to Lake Powell, we get the houseboat and the little boat. And I think to myself, wow, this is the place I came to heal so long ago. I didn't do it on purpose. It just happened. And so here we are on this huge houseboat, no other people, no electronics, like Daniel Glick said, relying on each other, breaking down the walls. Had this amazing time. One morning, Kieran took the kids wakeboarding really, really early. The water was like glass. So I was by myself. So I just cried and cried and cried and talked to my father and just like really had that ugly cry that I needed. And I didn't allow myself until I got to nature by myself. So, anyways, we fast forward, we had a great time. The last day, something on the boat broke. Now, I don't know where we are because it's 400 miles of red rock. So I said to Kieran, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'll call in. And I'm like, where are you going to tell him we are? At the red rock? I mean, there's 400 miles of it. So I don't know. He figured out how to tell the guy where we were. And the guy came out and he was probably your age, young guy, adorable, got on the boat. We hadn't talked to another person all week. So we were like ready to talk. And the kids were all sitting there. And he was adorable. He stayed for about a half an hour. I think it was our alternator or something. And he fixed it. And right before he left, he was about to leave. And I said, that was really nice of you to come and save us. Thank you. What's your name? And he said, my name is Ed. That's my dad's name.
I
And
get full body chills every time you tell that story.
And nobody your age is named Ed.
Right.
It's not a common name. So that was healing.
Yeah. And even the wording of like, thank you for coming to save us. It's the whole thing. And I think that this happens more often than not, and probably in those moments where you do have your guard down. Like there is something that you said earlier about shared vulnerability that I think is hugely important. And my clients and I talk a lot about not really being able to heal in the same place that you were hurt. Not that you can't go back there, not that you can't make new memories there, but really to process whatever has happened in an external environment, you kind of need to like pick yourself up and go somewhere else. And part of it is about that shared vulnerability. It's the same reason why you do years and years of therapy. And then the second you walk into your childhood home, every dynamic floods back into the room. And all of a sudden you're 16 again and fighting with your siblings. It's that when you're in an environment with other people who are experiencing the same thing, that sometimes I think it is easier in one way to process, but then it's also harder to internally process on your own. So getting yourself out of that environment and, like you said, going to a place that you feel like is healing, or maybe don't even have an understanding of what you're doing, you let your guard down in the moment of just feeling like I'm not in my usual environment. And yes, I have to be aware and alert and all those different things, but I can be kind of emotionally vulnerable. I can be whoever I need to be in this moment here. So I feel like in that moment for you, it was just, we're on this boat, we're stuck. This is who I am right now. And
Hmm.
in that moment of kind of not thinking about it, letting your guard down, kind of having this conversation with a stranger that turned into this very healing moment, I think speaks volumes to just, again, getting out of your kind of comfort zone and out of the external environment that maybe something negative happened in.
So all the work that you're doing with the life coaching is so valuable because later in life, hopefully it's later in life when you have the losses, it's habit of to being vulnerable with your emotions in those moments,
Mhm.
instead of my generation and the other generations where we push it down and we put it away and we don't talk about it. Like we go back to soldiers after the war, they just put everything away and they don't talk about it. And that's how we were brought up with grief. But your generation, I'm just hoping that it changes, and life coaching and these tools that you practice in everyday life will be honed and sharpened and useful in death.
Yeah, and passed down. I mean, I think that now we're getting to a place where we're seeing kind of the first generation who has some of these tools have children and raise those children and bring them up in a different way than, even I was brought up, to be honest, right? So I think that giving people the opportunity to have some of these conversations and just say, like, yes, it's normal that you wouldn't feel your absolute best in the same place where your grief happened. It is, I think back to when my grandfather passed and we were all in Florida and we did a funeral there and we did, sort of a reception there, and we were there doing the business of death for a full 7 days. And then we all got on a plane and went back to Rhode Island, which is where I'm from. And we did sort of the funeral there and then the reception there. And I will say the relief of just getting on the fucking plane home and not having to stay in that environment that all of that happened in was, it is almost like I can't describe the feeling of just like, we're getting out of here. Like we had to move away from that space, and everybody's been back since. And, it does hold, I think, some memories for people differently, but it really, in that moment, like I think that people assume, especially if it happens in a home, a family home, or it happens, in an environment that you're in constantly, that it is meant to be processed in that exact environment. And I think that the point of something like a healing trip is get outside of that, get outside
Hmm.
of the memories of that, get outside of just the confinement that this experience happened here. And yeah, be able to really shed light on some different parts of how you're feeling that aren't attached to an external space. Because I think that that's, the hard thing is that there's so much attachment to things and places, especially when someone passes.
Right. And you have that visual, right? And then you have the repetitive thoughts. So if you change your visual and interrupt your repetitive thoughts and then expand your thinking, into the nature cycle, it really can do wonders. And, you don't have to go to Nepal and you don't have to go on a big whatever boat in Lake Powell. And that's what I was telling my friend. Even just going into nature and just being quiet and having that cry, or just listening to different sounds and quiet your mind, it's different for everyone. And for example, when your grandfather died and when you did have the funeral and the reception down here in Florida, by the way, that's when you and I locked eyes and we were like, all right, we're doing something together.
Yeah.
I remember
I was
saying,
like, this has
like,
been a shit show, so we've got to talk about it at some point.
and I remember I said to your mother, all right, I am in on a healing trip if you want to do a healing trip. I think you need it, and I think that I want to be there for you and I want to do one with you. And so, she's like, okay. She didn't know what a healing trip was, whatever. But she was like, okay. Now, her idea of a healing trip was, Bruno Mars in Vegas with another friend of hers, which is awesome. And that got her to stop having repetitive thoughts, change her environment. So everybody's healing trip is different.
Totally.
But it's the motivation and the intention to put yourself and your emotions and your grief first. Stop putting it aside. Go through them, feel them, be them.
Yeah. And you and I read a book when we were first starting the process of trying to, get our own book sort of off the ground, Memorial Days, which we loved. And you were reading in your book club and actually got to meet the author. But it was fascinating because in this story, and I'm not exactly sure of timeline, so if you know off the top of your head, correct me, but it was several years after this woman's husband had passed that she decided to do a healing trip. So I think that, to your point, it's not only that this can look different for everyone, it also is, this doesn't have to be in a specific timeline. And I think that grief processes differently over time in general. And when she got out into nature and quieted her mind, she realized how much she had been repressing, how much she had felt trapped and confined by her environment back home, of, to your point of, your friend having to take care of the kids and still do all of the life things that you get caught up in. This is what I have to do. And grief seems secondary in those moments, even though it's so ever present. It's like, I'll do everything that I absolutely have to do, put food on the table, get myself dressed, get myself going, get my kids out the door, and then I'll deal with this. And so it gets put on this back burner, but it is such a large part of what's going on internally that it becomes harder to not face after a while.
It's so true. And I think it was 3 years, and she had two boys, and she had a lot of red tape and business of death that she had to deal with. So I have right here in front of me. She waited 3 years and she went home. She was from Australia. So she ended up going home. She was in total solitude. And she said she often went days without seeing another human being, allowing her to stop performing normalcy and focus entirely on her mental health. That's a powerful way to say it.
Yeah.
She had a connection to nature. The pristine, harsh coastal landscape of the island served as a therapeutic environment to process her memories. And this one is the most important, I feel like, because this is how I experienced my own letting go. It was during this isolation that she realized she had to stop mourning the future that she expected to have with her husband and accept the life that she had.
That's huge. Yeah.
I mean, I have goosebumps. This is just, these two books are so powerful. So Monkey Dancing and Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And
And I think to stop performing normalcy, like I love that quote because I think that, again, we get so caught up in the day to day minutia of everything that needs to be done, the details, the lunches that need to be packed, the workout routine, the wake up and this is what we do next. And most of us, and especially during grief, you're really living one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. Can I just make it to the car, never mind to my actual destination? And breaking that pattern and giving yourself an opportunity to say, there are no rules, I think allows you to, again, expand your thought process, maybe get a little deeper. And, I encourage this with my clients in general, but just with people in my life, my friends, my family, to spend time with your thoughts alone can feel very intimidating, can feel very scary, can feel like, well, what if I don't like what I hear? Or what if I'm not really ready to face those things?
or
Um,
comfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable.
yeah, but we cannot get the answers to the things that we are struggling with until we are able to ask ourselves the questions. And sometimes, I have my clients do this exercise when they're in a rut or a funk or, processing something and don't know how to move through it, where you just sit down and write out because I think that writing is also very cathartic. So anytime someone does like a healing trip or something like that, I'm very pro bring a journal or, voice note everything, however you need to get it out of your system. But you write at the top basically like, this is the way that I'm feeling. Like, let's just say, I'm feeling overwhelmed by the future that I'm grieving, and then you just ask yourself why. And then whatever comes to your mind in that instance, you write down. And then you ask yourself again, why? And you just keep going and going and going until all of a sudden there's this aha moment. And I've never had anyone come to me after this exercise and not have that aha moment. But it really allows you to like stretch your brain and to not just think of the surface level, which is I'm grieving the future that I'll never have. Okay, why? Because, that makes me really upset. Okay, why? Because this is all of the different things. And so many times, especially because we are not taught to sit with ourselves, to sit with our own thoughts, we think that the surface level issue is the root issue. And they are almost 100% of the time two different things.
That's fascinating and such a good practice.
Yeah.
And
By the
you
way,
know
you
what?
can do that with anything.
Well, you just gave me an idea. So, the journaling, the assignment, healing trip. I think you should be a healing trip planner.
Oh my God. You sound like my mother. Everything that I do, she's like, you should do that for a living. I'm like, I can only have so many
No, you're doing
careers.
this for a living, but I do think you'd be a very good healing trip planner.
Well, I think we should eventually do retreats.
Well, yeah, I do
I mean,
too.
which would be healing trip planning in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah. All right,
But
put that.
I do think that, because of the 20 questions interviews, because of the questions that I have come up with, because of the journals that I've written, that I can help people come to that place of, I've never even thought of that question. And it just answered so many things for me. So, I think, yeah, it's important to ask yourself questions in everything that you do, by the way. I'm dating this person and I like them. Why?
Well, so can you put a list of your books on our website so people can read more about the life coaching and the questions that you ask and the
Yes.
journaling?
Yes, I
Good.
absolutely can.
Okay.
And I again wrote a book called The Everyday Affirmations, which is 365 days of thought-provoking journal prompts and just positive thoughts. But having a journal prompt every day, that's whether it's comes from just your brain or you look up a list of 100 questions to ask or go to the 20 questions and get inspired by that, asking yourself a singular question every day is a great way to be alone with your own thoughts without necessarily feeling like you have to delve into isolation, because I think that that's people mistake being alone with being isolated, and
Good
you just
point.
need to give yourself some space. It does not mean that you need to shut out the rest of the world, not have any sort of communication with anybody, or feel like you don't have, feel like you don't have a way to tap into your own internal resource, which I think so many of us don't think is that powerful. And yet your intuition and the things that your body has held on to, the things that are ever present. And asking yourself the question is sometimes just the catalyst for, oh, this is exactly why I feel this way, or this is exactly how I'm going to move through this, or this is exactly what I need to do next.
Well, you can help a lot of people, so we got to let them know where to find you.
Yeah. Well, you can find me at devynpenny.com.
Okay, there we go.
I also want you to have a more public profile so that you can share some of your wisdom. I know this is step 2. We're giving the audience a lot of future plans that we have.
Well, they should stay tuned and watch them all happen. So
Yes, stay
that'll be
tuned.
fun. So, speaking
Yeah.
of future plans, I have to tell you, so you just said voice note earlier.
Mhm,
Now, up until yesterday, I didn't know what a voice note was,
mhm.
when people use them, how you do them. I didn't know what a voice note was. So, as we've talked about, next week is your mom's big birthday and my big birthday, and we have all these plans and we're going to celebrate. And so, this is my first birthday without my aunt, who was, just one of the most important people in my life for a million reasons. And it has a lot to do with who I am today. So, yesterday, I was sending the specifications for a closet design to a contractor. And I was sending, and all of a sudden, this thing popped up on my phone and it looked like a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And it had, the play button in the middle, which I guess is a voice note.
Yes.
And I hit the button, and it's my aunt wishing me a happy birthday. I don't even know from what year.
So crazy. When you sent me that, I was like, oh my God. Because it is so timely, first of all. I mean, it's such an unmistakable sign, but it's also just such a random thing that you would have even, because it's a voice note, but it's something that you saved. I mean, that's the thing too, is like but you probably didn't even realize you did.
I was gonna say, but how did it get made?
It's probably a voicemail that she left you that you saved at some
Oh,
point in
I,
time, but
yeah,
accidentally, I'm sure.
yeah. And then, I almost sent it to my contractor. I was like, well, wait, this isn't part of the specification. What is this? I mean, and like you say, the timing of it. She
Yeah.
she knows we're leaving. She knows it's next week. She knows I probably wouldn't talk to her because I'm away or whatever. And so she's calling to say goodbye and happy birthday. Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? It's so
So
wonderful.
crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy. And similar vein, my mom texted you. She texted my sister and I the other day that my grandfather, her father, visited her in a dream also. And she said, I can't explain it. It didn't seem like a dream. It seemed so real. It seemed like a visit. We were laughing, all these different things, which I get very happy for people when when they're open enough to receive messages or visits, from people. And I actually asked on our threads yesterday or the day before, like, has a loved one ever come to you with a message? And what have they said? And some people's were like, oh yeah, they told me not to get married, like some really, extreme things, but also just wishing happy birthdays and things like that. And so I said to you, once you had said that, I said, the angels know it's your guy's birthday. They're coming to say happy birthday and make sure that they're thinking of you. So it's amazing.
Which makes your mom feel so good going into her first birthday without her dad, right? That
Second, yes,
Oh, it's
but a
second
big
birthday?
birthday. Yeah.
Okay. And so, he showed up.
Yeah, he showed up. I know. It's crazy. There
It's
are
wonderful.
really crazy signs everywhere.
Yeah,
And I
embrace them.
always, I think again, for people who don't totally I don't know, connect through dreams or things like that, like sometimes asking for that and it's just being so clear. Like sometimes when I want to laugh, I ask my uncle to come to me in a dream because he was one of the funniest people I know. Because I just am like, just come make me laugh for, the 5 seconds that you're in. And every single time arrives, but also it is just that it's just for laughter. Like there's no other reason for him to be in the dream. So yeah, I think if you are someone who wants to connect through dreams or through signs or anything like that, being open to that, first of all, is majorly important, but also just asking the question.
Again, you're good at asking the questions.
My whole life revolves around how many questions I can ask in
It's
a
good.
day.
It's good. It's good.
It is good.
All right. Well, listen, I don't think we're going to do one next week because you're going to be with your mom celebrating. I'm going to be with my kids celebrating. So we'll skip 1 week and then come back after, and then we'll have lots of stories.
Yes, we will be partying hard. And we were debating on whether or not to squeeze one in and try to travel with our microphones and all those things. And we said, you know what? It's, as I said at the beginning of the episode, equally as important to celebrate life and be present and to
Mhm.
just enjoy. So if you need that reminder, that's a good reminder. And as usual, one, you can listen to the rest of our episodes in the meantime, anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And also our website where we have a couple forms up that are just a good way to intro the conversation of how you want to die, what grief actually looks like, how you want to organize your things, etc. And you can find us at It All Goes Back to Death on both Instagram and Threads.
I'm so proud of you. You're so good at this.
I just go through the checklist in my head. I'm like, did I say that? Did I say that? Did I say that? Okay, great.
You're very good at this. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy to be doing this with you.
Same, you're very good at this too. And I have been so impressed. I mean, even just from the first episode, like you're a total natural and you had
Uh,
so much trepidation in doing this to begin with. And it's been
I still do.
no, no. And we've had so, I mean, should we just brag on ourselves for one
Go ahead.
second? We've had such good feedback, such real good feedback. Not just like episode was great, but really people having conversations, thinking differently, doing exactly what we wanted things to do. I've had my clients, in our sessions be like, I'm listening to the podcast and I love it so much. It scratches the itch for me. Like there is just so much love and support around this, a difficult topic, not something that everyone wants to talk about every single day. But I think it's been really important to have these conversations. And I think that, we've only got more and more and more to talk about.
Listen, it never ends with this topic. We'll never run out of material.
It
So
never ends.
we're here to stay.
We're here to stay. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Well, I love you. Talk to
I
you
love you.
soon.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.